The city of Arden Hollow never truly slept, just like the man who lived at its edge. Rain tapped softly against the cracked window of a small, dim apartment overlooking rusted rooftops and flickering neon lights. Inside, the air smelled faintly of oil, metal, and something older, something like quiet loneliness that had settled into the walls over time. Elias Vorn sat at his workbench, hands steady but slow, repairing a broken service drone that wasn't worth fixing. He knew it. The client knew it. But he kept working anyway, because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant remembering. Elias hadn't always lived like this. Once, he had been part of something bigger, someone people relied on, someone who mattered. But life had a way of taking things apart piece by piece until all that remained was routine and silence. Tonight felt heavier than usual. The rain was louder, the room colder, and the quiet deeper. Then he heard it, a soft sound, so faint it almost disappeared into the rhythm of the rain. Elias paused. His tools hovered mid-air as he listened. There it was again, a small, fragile cry. Not mechanical, not human, alive. He frowned, standing slowly. "That's new," he muttered under his breath. The sound came from outside. Elias grabbed his coat and stepped into the rain, the cold instantly biting through the fabric. The alley behind his building was narrow, cluttered with discarded scrap and flickering light panels. Shadows moved with the wind, shifting shapes that meant nothing, until one of them moved wrong. Another soft cry echoed. Closer. Elias followed it carefully, stepping over puddles and broken metal. The sound led him to a small gap between two stacked crates, barely noticeable unless you were looking for something hidden. He crouched, and found it. Tiny dragon, curled into itself, shivering violently, its scales shimmering faintly even under layers of dirt and rain. They weren't dull like the ones shown in Empire broadcasts. These were soft, luminous, like pale gold catching what little light existed. Its wings were folded tightly around its body, trembling with every breath. And it was alone, completely alone. Elias didn't move at first. "You've got to be kidding me," he whispered. The dragon lifted its head weakly. One eye opened halfway, unfocused but aware enough to recognize movement. It didn't hiss, didn't run. It just looked at him, tired. Elias exhaled slowly, something shifting in his chest he hadn't felt in a long time. "Hey!" he said quietly, lowering himself a little closer. "Easy. I'm not here to hurt you." The dragon made a faint sound, half a breath, half a plea. That was enough. Elias carefully reached forward, giving it time to react. The dragon flinched slightly, but didn't pull away. His hand touched its scales. Warm. Too warm for something this small to be out here in the rain. "You're freezing," he murmured. Without thinking further, Elias slipped off his coat and gently wrapped the dragon inside it, lifting it slowly into his arms. The creature tensed for a moment, then stilled. And then, it leaned into him, not out of strength, out of instinct. Elias froze slightly. "All right," he said under his breath. "Guess you're coming with me." Back inside the apartment, the difference was immediate. Warmth, light, safety, however small. Elias set the dragon down on a folded blanket near the heater, but the moment he stepped back, it made a weak sound again. He paused. "Seriously?" The dragon shifted, struggling slightly as if trying to follow him. Elias sighed quietly. "Fine." He sat down beside it instead. The dragon immediately curled closer, closer, until it pressed against his side. Elias stilled. He hadn't expected that. Slowly, cautiously, he rested his hand against its back again. The dragon didn't flinch this time. It relaxed. Minutes passed. The rain softened outside. The room grew quieter. And for the first time in a long while, Elias didn't feel alone. At some point, exhaustion pulled at him. He leaned back against the wall, intending to stay awake just a little longer, just until he knew the creature was stable. But his eyes closed, just for a moment, and when he woke again, the dragon was asleep, curled beside him, one small wing draped gently across his arm, like it knew. like it understood something he hadn't said out loud, that he needed the warmth just as much as it did. Elias looked down at it, something quiet and unfamiliar settling in his chest. "Yeah," he whispered softly. "Guess we both needed that." Outside, the city of Arden Hollow kept moving, loud and indifferent. But inside that small, dim apartment, something had changed. Not loud, not dramatic, just real. Morning didn't arrive gently in Arden Hollow. It forced its way in through cracked glass and flickering light panels, dragging the city back to life whether it wanted to wake up or not. Elias stirred slowly, the stiffness in his back reminding him he had fallen asleep sitting against the wall. For a moment he didn't move, because something was warm against him. Soft. Alive. He looked down. The little dragon was still there, curled tightly at his side. One small wing draped across his arm like it had claimed him in the night. His breathing was slow and steady now, far stronger than before. Elias exhaled quietly. "So you're real." The dragon shifted slightly, reacting to his voice. Its eyes opened, clearer now, brighter, watching him with quiet awareness. No fear, just curiosity. "Morning," Elias muttered. The dragon made a soft chirp in response, almost like an answer. Elias carefully moved his arm, expecting it to pull away. Didn't. Instead, it leaned closer. He paused. "You don't do personal space, do you?" The dragon tilted its head, clearly not understanding, but not caring either. Elias gave a faint, tired smile. Then reality returned. "You're a problem," he said under his breath. The dragon blinked. "Not your fault," he added quickly. "Just you existing." Because dragons didn't just appear in alleyways. And when they did, it meant one thing. Someone was going to come looking. Elias stood slowly, the dragon watching his every movement. He grabbed a small ration pack from a nearby shelf and crouched back down. "Let's start with basics," he said. "You eat." He opened the pack and placed it carefully in front of the dragon. It sniffed cautiously, then devoured it with surprising speed. Elias raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, okay. Definitely hungry." The dragon finished and looked up at him again, expectant this time. "Don't look at me like that," Elias muttered. "I'm not a food dispenser." The dragon chirped softly. Elias sighed. "I'm going to regret this." He stood and moved toward the small storage unit, grabbing another ration. When he turned back, the dragon had followed him. Quietly, closely, right at his heel. Elias blinked. "Seriously?" The dragon sat down, looking up at him. Waiting, trusting. That feeling in his chest shifted again. Unfamiliar, uncomfortable, but not unwelcome. He handed it the second ration. "You're not leaving, are you?" The dragon simply ate. That answered the question. A sudden noise echoed from outside, distant, but sharp. Not random city noise. Organized. Elias froze. The dragon noticed instantly, its body tensing. Another sound followed, low hovering engines. Closer this time. Elias moved quickly to the window, peeking through the cracked panel. His expression hardened. Imperial patrol units. Too many for routine sweep. "Yeah," he whispered. That didn't take long. Behind him, the dragon made a soft, uneasy sound. Elias turned back to it. "They're not here for me," he said quietly. "They're here for you." The dragon didn't understand the words, but it understood the tone. It stepped closer to him instinctively. Elias looked down at it, small, fragile, and completely unaware of what it meant to be hunted by something like the Empire. He exhaled slowly. "All right," he muttered. "Guess we're doing this." The dragon tilted its head. Elias grabbed his coat, tools, and a small concealed device from under his workbench. Old habits, old instincts, not gone, just buried. "Stay close," he said firmly. The dragon obeyed immediately. They moved toward the back exit, narrow, hidden, rarely used. Outside, the alley was already shifting. Drones passed overhead, scanning. Boots echoed in the distance. Voices controlled, precise, systematic. Elias crouched beside the exit and looked at the dragon one more time. "You trust me?" he asked quietly. The dragon stepped closer without hesitation. "That was enough." Elias nodded once. "Then don't leave my side." They slipped into the shadows just as a searchlight swept across the alley behind them. Above, a voice echoed through the district. "Unregistered biological signature detected. All units converge." Elias didn't look back. He moved forward fast, controlled, familiar with every narrow path and broken route the city tried to hide. The dragon stayed with him, step for step, because somewhere between the cold alley and the quiet night, it had already decided. And now the city of Arden Hollow was about to learn something dangerous. A lonely man wasn't alone anymore. Arden Hollow was built like a maze, and Elias knew every broken path inside it. He moved fast through the narrow back alleys, slipping between stacked scrap, ducking under hanging cables, turning corners without hesitation. This part of the city wasn't on official maps anymore. It was forgotten space, perfect for hiding. Behind him, the dragon followed, small, quick, staying close enough that its warmth brushed against his leg with every step. It didn't question, didn't hesitate, trusted him completely. That made this harder. Above, search drones hummed through the sky, their scanning beams slicing between rooftops. The Empire had locked down the district faster than Elias expected. "They're serious," he muttered. The dragon made a soft sound, sensing the tension. Elias glanced down briefly. "Yeah, I know." They turned into a tighter corridor, barely wide enough for one person. Elias slowed, raising a hand slightly. "Quiet now." The dragon immediately lowered its body, moving silently beside him. At the end of the corridor, Elias stopped. "Voices. Close. Reading is strongest in this sector. Seal the perimeter. Nothing gets out." Elias leaned against the wall, peeking carefully around the edge. 2 Imperial soldiers stood at the far end of the alley, scanning equipment active, rifles ready. Too close. He pulled back, thinking fast. The dragon looked up at him, waiting. Elias crouched down slightly. "We're going to go around," he whispered. "Slow. No noise." The dragon blinked, then nodded just slightly. Elias paused. "Did you just?" "No time." He shook it off. They turned back, taking a different path, deeper into the older parts of Arden Hollow, where structures leaned at impossible angles and the lights barely worked. But the Empire was tightening the net. A drone dropped suddenly from above, landing hard in front of them. Scanning beam locked instantly. Target acquired. Elias reacted without thinking. He grabbed a metal rod from the ground and swung hard. The drone sparked violently, crashing into the wall. "Move!" he snapped. They ran. But now the Empire knew exactly where they were. Sirens began to echo. Boots pounded in the distance. Too many. Too fast. Elias skidded to a stop at a dead end. "No!" He turned sharply, scanning for another route. Nothing. Just a narrow vertical shaft leading upward between buildings. Climbable. Barely. He looked down at the dragon. "You're going to hate this," he said. He picked it up carefully, securing it against his chest. The dragon tensed but didn't resist. "Hold on." Elias jumped, grabbing onto a rusted support beam, pulling himself upward. The climb was rough, unstable, metal shifting under his weight. Below them, Imperial soldiers flooded into the alley. There, above, blaster fire lit the narrow space. Elias gritted his teeth, climbing faster. Almost. A shot hit the wall beside him, too close. The structure shook violently. The dragon let out a sharp cry. "Hey, easy," Elias said. "Stay with me." But something was happening. The dragon's body was heating again. That same glow from before, faint at first, then growing. Elias felt it immediately. "Not now," he muttered. Below, another shot fired, and the dragon reacted. A pulse of energy burst outward. Not controlled. Not directed. Instinctive. The entire shaft vibrated. Metal twisted. Lights flickered across the district. Every Imperial scanner in range spiked wildly. Energy surge detected. Fall back. The blast didn't harm Elias. It stabilized around him. Like the dragon wasn't protecting itself. It was protecting him. Elias froze mid-climb. "You're doing that on purpose now," he whispered. The dragon pressed closer to him. The glow softened but didn't disappear. Below, the Empire hesitated. Not retreating, but no longer certain. Elias used the moment. He pulled himself onto the rooftop, rolling over the edge and immediately getting to his feet. "Come on!" They moved across the rooftops now. Faster, more open, but more exposed. The city stretched out around them. Lights, noise, life, unaware of what was unfolding above. Behind them, drones rose into the air, tracking, adapting. Elias slowed slightly, breathing hard. "We can't keep running like this," he said. The dragon looked at him. He met its gaze. Something passed between them. Not words. Understanding. Elias straightened. "All right," he said quietly. "Then we don't run." The dragon didn't hesitate. It stepped forward. Beside him. Not behind. Not hiding. With him. Elias gave a faint smile. "Yeah, I thought so." The drones closed in. Searchlights locked. The Empire surrounded them from above. And for the first time, Elias didn't move. Because this wasn't just about escaping anymore. This was about something far more dangerous. A bond. One the Empire couldn't break. The wind howled across the rooftops of Arden Hollow. Elias stood still. Not because he had nowhere to go, but because he had finally stopped running. The dragon stood beside him, small but steady, its faint glow cutting through the darkness like a quiet promise. Above them, Imperial drones circled, their red targeting lights locking into place one by one. More followed, then more. The sky filled with them. Not chaotic, controlled, inevitable. A voice echoed through the air. Cold, amplified, precise. Human identified. Unauthorized biological asset confirmed. Surrender immediately. Elias didn't look up. He looked down at the dragon. "You hear that?" he said quietly. "They still think you belong to them." The dragon made a soft sound. Not afraid. Not uncertain. Present. Elias exhaled slowly, tension leaving his shoulders for the first time since this began. "Yeah," he murmured. "I don't think so either." A drone descended lower, weapons charging. Final warning. Elias stepped forward. Just one step, but it changed everything. Because the dragon moved with him. Not behind him, beside him. The glow around its body strengthened. No longer flickering, no longer unstable. Calm. Controlled. The air shifted. Every drone in the sky adjusted targeting simultaneously. Elias raised his voice, not loud, but clear. "You want it." A pause. "Come take it." The first shot fired. And everything broke. Elias moved, but not to escape. He stood his ground. The blast should have hit him. Should have ended everything in a single instant. But it didn't. Because the dragon stepped forward. And the world changed. The energy hit. And bent. Not deflected. Not blocked. Rejected. Like reality itself refused to let it connect. A shockwave rolled outward, rippling across the rooftops, through the drones into the very systems controlling them. Lights flickered. Weapons stalled. Targeting systems failed. Across the sky, one by one, the drones lost lock. The Empire didn't fire again. Not because it couldn't, because it didn't understand what it was seeing. Elias stared down at the dragon. "You're not just protecting yourself anymore," he whispered. The dragon didn't respond. It stepped forward again. And the city reacted. Lights dimmed across entire blocks. Systems glitched. Screens went dark. The hum of technology, the constant noise of Arden Hollow, fell into broken silence. The dragon's presence spread. Not violently, naturally, like something waking up that had always been there. Above them, the drones drifted, no longer controlled, no longer precise. Disconnected. A new voice cut through the silence. Calmer, deeper. "Not a soldier. Authority. Stand down." The drones froze mid-air. Elias looked up. A larger craft hovered above the district, sleek, silent, watching. Then the voice again. Do not engage. The Empire wasn't retreating. It was observing. Because this was no longer a capture mission. This was something else. Elias slowly relaxed his stance but didn't step back. The dragon returned to his side, the glow fading slightly, settling back into a quiet warmth. The air stabilized. The city lights flickered back to life. But nothing felt the same. The voice spoke one final time. This entity is not classified. A pause. Then, withdraw. One by one, the drones lifted. The larger craft followed. And just like that, they were gone, leaving only wind and silence. Elias stood there for a long moment, staring at the empty sky. Well, he muttered, that's new. The dragon nudged his hand. He looked down at it. Small again, quiet, but no longer fragile. Elias gave a faint smile. Yeah, he said softly. I think they finally get it. He crouched slightly, resting his hand against its head. They don't decide what you are. The dragon leaned into him. Warm, certain. And in that moment, standing on a rooftop no one cared about in a city that never noticed anything, something impossible had happened. Not a victory, not a battle won. Something simpler, stronger. A choice had been made. And the Empire, for the first time, had stepped back. Arden Hollow went back to normal. Or at least, it pretended to. The lights flickered like they always did. The rain returned. People moved through the streets without looking up, without asking questions they didn't want answers to. But something had changed. They felt it. Not clearly, not loudly, just enough to make the silence different. Up in the higher districts, whispers spread through quiet channels and hidden networks. Reports were filed, erased, then filed again. Surveillance footage glitched whenever it mattered most. Every system that tried to define what had happened on those rooftops failed. The Empire had no word for it, and that made it dangerous. Far below all of that, back in a small, dim apartment at the edge of the city, Elias sat at his workbench again. Same tools, same broken machines, same quiet hum of old electronics. But not the same man. Because now, he wasn't alone. The little dragon slept beside him, curled comfortably on a folded cloth near the heater. Its scales glowed faintly in soft pulses, like it was dreaming. Peaceful, safe. Elias glanced at it as he worked, his movements slower now. Not from exhaustion, but from something steadier. You picked a strange place, he murmured. The dragon shifted slightly, as if hearing him even in sleep. Elias leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling for a moment. They're still watching, he said quietly. You know that, right? No response. Just the soft rhythm of the dragon's breathing. He huffed a small laugh. Yeah. Figured you didn't care. A faint knock echoed through the metal door. Elias froze. The dragon's eyes opened instantly. Awake. Alert. That glow returned, soft, but ready. Elias stood slowly, moving toward the door. Another knock. Calm. Measured. Not imperial. Different. He hesitated, then opened it slightly. A figure stood in the hallway. Not armored. Not official. Just a traveler, cloaked, face partially hidden. Their voice was quiet. You sent a signal. Elias's expression sharpened. I didn't send anything. The figure tilted their head slightly. Not intentionally, they said. But it reached us. Behind Elias, the dragon stepped closer. The air shifted slightly. The figure noticed immediately. So it's true, they whispered. Elias stepped forward, blocking the doorway. Who are you? A pause. Then, someone who's been looking for what you found. Silence stretched between them. Elias glanced back at the dragon, then returned his gaze forward. And if I say you're not taking it? The figure didn't move, didn't push, didn't threaten. Instead, they said something unexpected. We don't want to take it. Another pause. We want to understand it. Behind him, the dragon made a soft sound. Not warning. Not fear. Recognition. Elias noticed immediately. His eyes narrowed slightly. You know them? The dragon didn't answer in words, but it stepped forward. Closer to the doorway. Closer to the stranger. Choosing to stand where both of them could see it. Elias exhaled slowly. This is getting complicated. The figure lowered their hood slightly, not enough to reveal everything, but enough to show they weren't hiding completely. We're not your enemies, they said. Elias crossed his arms slightly. Yeah, that's what everyone says. A faint hint of a smile. Then don't trust us, the figure replied. Just listen. The dragon looked between them, waiting. Elias hesitated, then stepped aside just slightly. Talk, he said. The figure nodded once. And outside, beyond the walls of Arden Hollow, beyond the Empire's reach, beyond the quiet lies of normal life, something was beginning to move. Not war, not control. Something older. Something that had been waiting. And now, it had found its way back. Inside a small apartment, where a lonely man had once sat in silence, and a beautiful little dragon had chosen to stay. Elias didn't trust the silence that followed. Silence, in his experience, was never empty. It was preparation. A pause before something larger decided to reveal itself. The stranger still stood in the doorway, patient, unmoving. The dragon remained beside Elias now, no longer hiding behind him, no longer unsure. It watched the figure with a steady, quiet focus that didn't belong to something just found in an alley. Elias noticed that too. You said you've been looking, he said carefully. Looking for what, exactly? The figure glanced at the dragon. Not what, they corrected softly. Who? That made Elias pause. Behind him, the dragon shifted slightly. His faint glow pulsed once, stronger than before. The figure continued. For a long time, the Empire has classified certain energy signatures as anomalies. Unstable, dangerous, contain or eliminate. Elias crossed his arms. Let me guess. That's him. A faint nod. Yes. The dragon made a low sound. Not fear, not aggression. Something closer to recognition again. Elias looked down at it. You understand this? The dragon didn't answer with words, but it moved forward again, closer to the stranger, and stopped right in front of them. For a long moment no one spoke. Then the figure slowly lowered their hand. Not touching, just offering presence. The air around the dragon shimmered faintly in response. Elias frowned. Okay, that's new. The figure finally spoke again. It is not a weapon, they said quietly. It never was. Elias gave a short, humorless laugh. Tell that to the Empire. The figure shook their head. The Empire fears what it cannot assign purpose to. A pause. And this was never meant to have one. The dragon tilted its head slightly, as if listening to something beyond sound. Then it did something neither of them expected. It stepped closer to the figure. Not away from Elias, just forward, as if testing something it already felt but couldn't explain. Elias felt it immediately, that small shift in his chest. You're not going anywhere, he muttered quietly. The dragon flicked its gaze back at him, and for the first time there was something like reassurance in it. Not separation, not abandonment, just understanding. The figure straightened slightly. We don't want to take it, they repeated. We want to protect what it becomes. Elias narrowed his eyes. And what makes you think I'm letting anyone else protect it? The figure didn't hesitate. Because you already are. That landed differently. Elias didn't answer right away. The dragon shifted back toward him now, breaking the distance it had just made. It pressed lightly against his leg again, grounding itself there like it always had, like it still chose him. The figure watched this carefully. Bond confirmed, they murmured. Elias frowned. Bond. The figure nodded once. It responds to intent, emotion, stability, not control. A pause. And it has already aligned. Elias looked down at the dragon again. You did all that? He asked quietly. The dragon made a soft sound. as if the question was the wrong one, as if it had never been about doing, just being. A distant hum rolled through the city again. But this time it wasn't imperial. It was different, deeper, broader. Elias looked up sharply. That's not them. The figure nodded once. No. A long silence followed. Then, they've noticed. The dragon's glow intensified slightly. Not fear. Awareness. Elias exhaled slowly. Noticed what? The figure looked at both of them. That something they cannot classify, a pause, is no longer isolated. The words hit heavier than they should have. Elias felt it immediately. This wasn't just about one dragon anymore. It never had been. The dragon pressed closer to him again, grounding the moment back into something real, something present. Elias rested a hand lightly on its head. Yeah, he muttered. Figures. The figure stepped back slightly now. More will come, they said. Not soldiers, not fleets, observers, seekers, those who want to understand before the Empire decides what understanding costs. Elias gave a faint, tired smile. So I'm hosting a cosmic mystery now? The figure didn't deny it. Something like that. A beat. Then they added, but you are no longer alone in it. The dragon looked up at Elias again. And this time he didn't argue. Outside, the city of Arden Hollow continued pretending nothing had changed. But above it, beyond it, something vast and unseen had begun to shift its attention toward a small apartment, a broken man, and a quiet little dragon that refused to be owned by anyone. Elias closed the door slowly, locked it, then leaned against it for a moment, exhaling. Yeah, he whispered. That's going to be a problem. The dragon chirped softly beside him, almost like agreement, almost like comfort, and in the silence that followed, it stayed.